Hello everyone, Shannon Guss here getting you ready for our episode 5 X interview for Australian Survivor versus the world. If you haven't seen episode 5, that is the merge episode, the Monday night episode. Firstly, watch it. It's so good. If you haven't watched the season, you're missing out. It's honestly so good. And click away if you haven't seen it. Okay, if you have seen it, you will know. Sarah goes home. We spoke to Sarah. She called in from Europe, which was very kind. I had a lot of questions for Sarah because her decision making has been a catalyst for so much of the season. So it was great to get the insight into some very complicated relationships that she had out there, which again have been so pivotal to the season at large. Also, the recap with Chappelle for episode 4 is out, with Pugh for episode 5 is out. And I think right about now, episode 6 should be out, with the recap out for that as well around this time. So that's going to be week 2 for us. Remember to donate to the Chizzy raffle. We've got about a week and a bit left for that so that you can take our finale Chizzy points in under 2 weeks at this point, which is insane. And we'll have an episode 6 exit interview as well. So hope you guys are enjoying all of the coverage. We'll have a show with Rob, all of the coverage. RenoGlobalSurvivor.com. Follow me at Shannon Gates so you don't miss any of it, because you don't want to miss any of it, because this season is so fun and also so short. We have to really grasp it while it lasts. But thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed this X interview, and I will see you next time. Sarah, calling in from Europe. You look like you're in Europe. I'm so jealous. How are you doing?
Shannon, I highly recommend being voted off from Survivor whilst traveling Europe. I'm really leaning into the luxuriousness of being mayor of Jury Villa. So I'm doing well.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I'm not going to do the whole interview like this. I just thought I'd come in strong with the
No,
theme.
you have to do the whole interview like this now. I will accept nothing less. So you've made your bed.
Well, I was taking reference from when you were in mourning on that and your podcast episode. So I was like, okay, we love a theme here, but I am going to take it off.
But you look too chic. You can't help it. But Sarah, I have so many questions, and like look what you're like. Even right now, you're being so chic. Are you doing that on purpose? Like, what is
I know I'm
happening?
being recorded, Shannon. I know this is going to get clipped up. Like I gotta, deliver.
Giving the people what they want. Okay, so many questions, and I want to start with Kirby. We could
Yes.
probably do a deep dive on just you and Kirby, and one day I really hope we do. But take me back to the formation of that. Like you have relationships coming into the season with people you've known for a long time. Kirby had just played. Why did Kirby become the hopeful ride or die?
Oh my God. Well, firstly, the charm of Kirby should be studied. It is very potent. So there's that. But beyond that, it wasn't just a simple being smitten by the charm, though that being incredibly powerful. For me, it was I really wanted a partnership. I wanted like that ride or die kind of player, as I said. And what I liked about Kirby in her previous games was how she had that kind of ride or die partnership. And I was hoping to have a nice collaborative alliance in that sense. And that's part of the reason why I didn't lean so strongly or as heavily into the Dave and the Luke relationships, because I did feel like I would be maybe a bit of a caddy and maybe kind of used as a number for their plans. Plus the fact that they also had Janine as a really strong number 2. And I wasn't actually sure that if push came to shove, that I would be able to one up Janine in like as we got later in the game. So I was really trying to forge my own kind of independent relationship. But that was really based on the assumption that it would be this kind of to and fro peer-to-peer alliance. Which I was really hoping, Kirby's such a strong character. She plays big, which I also really love. I love players that play big. But yeah, that was the kind of logical reasoning of the being drawn to Kirby in that sense.
Yeah, so we see from the first vote how difficult that is. She wants David. You're very tight with David. You've known him for over a decade. We see you kind of struggle with that, trying to tell him to play an idol if he has it, but you feel like you're stuck to Kirby. And in your final words, you're like, I should have gone with David. Like, what was the thought process through a very, very sticky situation in the first vote that you had in the season?
Yeah. I think, that original intention of having the ride or die in Kirby was really put to task on that first vote. And I was like, oh, okay, so this isn't going to be the alliance that I had intended to have. So yeah, it was like, look, it was completely frustrating. And if you know me as a player, I do not take well to being told what to do. I really like having a conversation. So I really was not super happy after that vote. And it was a challenging, really challenging spot. Yeah, if I had my time again, I absolutely would have. I think the writing was on the wall even in that moment that this was not going to be a partnership where that I had wanted to sort of have. So I think if I really kind of run that logic in my head, I would have just flipped back to Dave. But I did think that with the investments that I've made in Kirby, that we could kind of recover, or I could still use Kirby in the game. But yeah, I mean, from that point, I was really on the back foot, and the rest of the game was recovery, and just everything was thrown out the window, and all of my good intentions were kind of really, yeah, challenged after that very first vote. So it was tricky.
Yeah, what would have been your perfect vote? Like, who were the names that would have been the perfect names for you in a situation where you do have a lot of different and varying relationships?
Look, I'm scared to go against this Shawnee fandom because they're impressive, they're a mighty force, and I'm also part of the Shawnee fandom. Just FYI, folks. But it would have been Shawnee for me, obviously. And the only reason being is it was, none of it was personal. It was simply that I could see her playing a really similar game to me. So really nurturing a lot of relationships and really playing the cracks of these big players. And that is exactly what I wanted to do in the game. And then equally, I just, she's so charming that I just knew the World Tribe would completely take to her as well. So it was simply just a matter. I mean, it's exactly what I said to Kirby, how Kirby felt about Dave in terms of Dave was taking up Kirby's sort of space that she saw herself playing strategically in this game. I really saw Shawnee as that same, threat for me personally. So yeah, that would have been the perfect one. And I would have loved to work with George. Like, I love a villain. I love a cheeky little naughty character that's maybe a little imperfect. Would have loved to play with him. But then he was so close with Shawnee, so then I couldn't like he was so his ride or die ended up being Shawnee. So I was like, oh damn, like I don't know that I can get in there because they really only had each other in the early stages of the game. So yeah, it just really panned out totally differently to what I had a lot of my assumptions I had going into the game.
Yeah, I was thinking about this last night. I think we recapped Brains v Brawn when George was on like the original braids and like everything was going wrong. And I'm pretty sure you gave him chizzy points, and I was like, that's madness. So I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, there was a real foundation there for a relationship. Did you go into that tribal council thinking it was George and then Kirby pushed it at tribal council?
Yeah, absolutely. Like part of the reason why I did speak to Dave on the beach was that I didn't want to spook Kirby. So um, like I was worried that if she saw me speaking to Dave at all, she would think that I was changing the plan, which was not the case. I was just trying to relay that we're all on George, it's all good. But Kirby was so hyper fixated on Dave on that first day that I was like, if I'm having a conversation with him at all, she's going to think that things are changing up and then panic and then change. Little did I know, perhaps she was always planning on changing. And again, had I picked up on that, I would have just spoken to Dave and like had that be out in the open. But at that point, I thought she was sort of going to stay the course and do what we as an alliance had agreed to do, because I just think that that's how you foster and nurture a good alliance. If we're playing Aussie World. I think a lot of the players, were used to having someone who leaned on them for kind of to set the strategic direction. But what was really obvious to me was that like no one's going to be just, being anyone's caddy in that game. And I think in Kirby's mind, I think she thought maybe I was happy just to kind of follow along and by her leadership, but that's not how Sarah likes to play.
Well, in line with that, we never actually saw the conversation where you want Shawnee out and she wants George out, and it becomes George, and you obviously have a conversation where you need Kirby's vote to
Ah,
pile on to what you think is going to be a one vote split, and
okay.
that doesn't happen. How did that conversation go?
With the
With
getting the vote
Kirby to vote for George when you wanted Shawnee
on the first vote.
on the
Yeah.
second vote when George goes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation I remember having was very much about Shields, which I think is the conversation around Shields was I think shown. Again, I've been kind of watching from social media and picking up on the comments, but it was really a conversation about shields, and I was saying to oh sorry, no, I'm thinking of the first vote. Um, how it got to George.
Because you wanted Shawnee out and she wanted George out. And then it
Yeah,
was George. And we kind of see
yeah,
that tip you into like pushing against Kirby because you don't get your way a second time to
yeah.
get Shawnee
Oh,
out. She
okay, okay.
wanted Shawnee out, yeah, and she wanted George out.
So
Yeah.
I don't, to be honest, this was a year ago. I can't
Yeah.
quite remember the conversation exactly between Kirby and I. But what made it end up being George, what I do remember, the deciding factor was he was simply just damaging too many relationships around camp. So, like, I think I would have pushed a lot harder for George, and, really push the kind of how you feel about Dave is how I feel about Shawnee thing. However, he was really becoming very hard to advocate for around camp, just through nature of his, like, how he was handling those relationships. So I naturally just backed off because I was like, well, if I push too hard, like this actually now makes no sense because like no one wants to work with him. So I'm not going to just fully put myself out there as the sole person who wants to work with him. So that's where that decision was kind of made. Yeah, I don't remember the conversation though, but yeah, I think I just naturally pulled off the pressure from there.
Yes. So we see there that you go to Janine and you're like, well, maybe we'll, maybe Kirby, but probably Shawnee. It was more for Shawnee, I feel. Like talk to me about the relationship with Luke and Janine because they're gonna blow up your spot, but then you also have the connection with them. You have a multi-year connection with Luke. So where were those relationships and that working dynamic when that all happened?
Yeah, so that was tricky. So, like I said, after that first vote, I was really coming for Kirby, or I had it in my back pocket that I was going to come for Kirby after that first vote. I didn't want to burn straight away the investments that I'd made. She had no reason to distrust me because I was like, I'm going to save face with her and just see, appear like I am fine with the David vote. Like, didn't love it, but I'm fine. But really, in the back of my mind, I was keeping that kind of betrayal in my back pocket and do a bit of tit for tat later in the game and feel completely justified by doing it. Um, so because I trusted Janine and Luke quite implicitly because of that previous relationship I had with Luke, I had been keeping them in the loop with my plans against Kirby kind of early days. It was like night two or like right after that vote, I let them know what was happening there. And I did trust that they wouldn't take that back to Kirby. I thought that they would kind of hold that knowledge and use it to their advantage later in the game. I guess I underestimated how badly they also wanted to work with Kirby. Um, and yeah, and that they ended up telling her, and that was absolutely my undoing in that sense. Um, but yeah, that was, the irony is I lent on that same trust of the kind of outside relationships as maybe Dave did on me, and went against my instincts to be like, no one owes anyone anything in this game. So yeah, watching it back and seeing the clip where Luke's like, hey, maybe you tell Kirby that bit of information to Janine. I was like, oh, cheeky bar. But what's fair is fair, and I don't think I'm really one to talk. So.
Well, how out were you on Kirby? Like it's in the back pocket, but you're saying Shawnee's name. You all obviously like need each other at the merge, and that's kind of the thought process you're going with. Like, at what point is push coming to shove with that? How much could Kirby trust you, or was she kind of right to get you out
Oh,
ASAP?
she was completely right to get me out, to get me ASAP. I'm not sure how much it was shown, like if like I was being consistently loyal post that Dave vote. I was certainly showing, publicly that I was. That was completely all strategic, because I didn't want to give away where my head was actually at. But no, she was completely right to get me, and that's why when the blindside happened, I was like, fair enough. However, the reason I felt so safe going into that post merge vote was I was like, well, no one's going to break the Aussie numbers going into this first critical vote. Like that's you don't do that. Like I sort of describe it as if you really like chess and you know all the kind of general rules you play in chess, like, oh yeah, this is kind of the general way of playing chess. Um, I see Survivor that way, but playing chess with Kirby is like playing with someone who doesn't know chess. So they just do like this wild stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I did not foresee that. But it works. It's really works really well when you're playing with someone who just is just strictly looking at the kind of rules of the lore of gameplay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a year-long preseason being like, Dave is the center of everything, and Kirby was like, nope, immediately, and I was like, oh, I forgot that that's not Kirby's not going to do the predictable thing ever, so that is hard to remember.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was so drawn to Kirby as well. Like she's clearly a huge player. Like she's going to be okay with other big players. She's going to be cool with shields. So I'm going to be able to play off this Kirby Dave thing for a while and hide behind both of those shields. But no, she was like, nope, I have my sword. No shields needed. I'm good. So yeah, did not see that.
What about the other relationships? I mean, I know it must have been a thrill for you to meet Parvati, as short-lived as it might have been, and as upsetting as it might have been to be voted out by Parvati. I don't know if it's kind of like a Regina George type thing, where it's like it's she's good, I guess, that she can vote you out, still an honor. What about those other internationals? Were you clicking with anyone? Like, what was the thought process with those new five relationships?
I would have loved, I think of my pick, if I had my complete pick, I would have loved to work with Tony. I just thought like he's just that like I get a lot of pleasure from like really chaotic players and I find them really great to work with if they chaotic but collaborative, if that makes sense. I would have loved to just work with Tony. I would feel like I would have really fueled his wildfire and had a lot of fun with that game. I'm not sure he would have wanted to work with me. This was the challenge. Being a bit of a lesser known player, it was really hard to have any kind of influence in these alliances because people are naturally drawn to the big ticket items. So it would have been interesting to see that play out. And with respect to Suri and Parvati, like I had constantly been telling myself, giving myself pep talks along the way, being like, they're just people. When you meet them, if you meet them, treat them as such. Don't get played by them. Like, they're completely strategic masterminds. And in a way, it was maybe good that I was voted off because I would have been played like a fiddle by Parv and Suri because I was not able to take heed of my self-talk. Um,
Relatable.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, it was epic to be on the same beach as them. Like, truly unimaginable.
Well, this is a bit of a rogue question, but if you're saying you want to maybe work with Tony, I don't know if you know how in trouble Tony was on the other side. You make fire that actually dooms Tony in the hope that, I mean, you're immune. You're hoping Shawnee will go. Who knows how Kirby is going to blow it up, but you're definitely immune. Was any part of you like, maybe I don't make the fire? Maybe I save some of these international legends and maybe Shawnee
Yes,
goes home? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I think, look, in that moment, I think I could have convinced Kirby to get Shawnee. I don't know though, because now post game, I'm like, I feel like I've convinced her, but she might just do something totally random in the moment. But I, for sure, in the moment in that game, I was like, I think I could convince Kirby and Luke and Janine to get Shawnee. Like, I think I could force my way, being that I am immune
Yeah.
in that vote. Because I would have had to pick someone. I really think I could have gotten Shawnee in that moment. So big
Yeah,
time,
and Luke's
like
not voting
like
Janine, and you're not, you want to
no,
vote. So it kind of feels like maybe that was Shawnee's time.
yeah, and I felt like that was fully my opportunity to get what I wanted individually. And looking back, maybe I should have done it. Should have tried something different. But again, I was just like, we're about to go into merge. I want to have more Aussie numbers. But again, in retrospect, hindsight's 2020. Like our tribe was fractured. I should have just moved to look after my own interests in that moment. But I was really like, this world tribe is going to be a tough competition. So let's try go in even numbers. Otherwise, we're going to get eaten up. So
Yeah. I didn't think about it at the time. I don't think that's like an instinctive thing to do, but it is interesting to think in hindsight if like Tony survives and you can get Shawnee there, like the whole landscape of the game is very different in like a fascinating way. But I
yeah,
mean, that's a big thing to do.
yeah, yeah. I know, but I think if I ever play next time, I'm just going to not bide my time all the time and not wait and overthink and like I think the inspiring part of Kirby is that she really just acts and it's impressive. Like the way she backs herself in that way is something really to be learned from strategically from her.
Well, what were the like longer term plans if this goes through and the Australia tribe, I guess, win at Rocks is the hope at that point. Were you voting for Cass? Was that yeah? It was yeah.
I originally wanted Cats because she seemed to be really, I mean, I think I correctly perceived that she was really in with everyone. Like she was quite pulling the strings. So again, like that middle player able to be very adaptive. I'm like, no, that's what I'm trying to do. So I don't want any of those. I want really, black and white players, but she was incredibly nuanced and yeah, awesome.
Well, but then and so where do you go from there? Like what were the who did you want to work with long term? Like if you're out on Kirby, like what are the thought processes to get to the end? Like who are the people you're trying to work with?
So first, really wanted to get Kirby out post merge, and I really liked Lisa. I don't know what if it was shown, but like I was really nurturing that relationship with Lisa on the immediate merge beach. I really wanted to work with Parvati, but and I would have. But like I said, I think I would have totally been played like a fiddle by her. So I don't think that would have been advantageous for me. Um, yeah, and then I really wanted to work with Suri as well. I mean, of course, I'm a Survivor fan. I'm going to want to work with these OG players. But yeah, I would say those three. I wanted to work with Lisa, Parv, and Suri. But I think Lisa might have been a really good alliance member for me.
Did any part of you at that point then think to just immediately flip once you got there and like those are your kind of working interests anyway to work with the internationals? Was there any part of you at the merge who, to break it up the way that they ended up breaking it up on you?
Yeah, so I think once I would have, if I could have gotten rid of Kirby, I would have been free from that, and I would have paid for it later in terms of getting the, saying that you're going to play loyal and then getting rid of Kirby. But my justification, all the while, if I were to get to the end, was like, well, Kirby betrayed me first vote, and a ride or die, by my assumption, is like a two-way street. So when that's not being reciprocated, that plan was dead in the water vote one. So I was going to always justify it in that sense, like coming for her. But once I would have been freed up from her, yeah, I would have wanted to, yeah, I would have completely flipped. Like I would have been a free agent in then. And I know that Luke and Janine were working really closely together. Luke and I were going to kind of play on the download. We agreed that we would on the beach. We agreed that we would have each other's back on the down low. So I never thought that Luke would actually proactively, try to clip my wings strategically in that sense. So I feel like I would have flipped, but tried to foster that relationship with Luke. Delusional strategy or not, that was maybe how I would have played out the rest of that game.
Right, but no part of you was gonna do that before, like was gonna cut into the Australian tribe before you got a winners Australia. You know what I mean? Like at the vote where you go home, did any part of you think like I'll just flip right now? Like I won't wait to take out a cast as an example. Like I'll just flip on Kirby tonight.
No, because I just really, I fundamentally believed in maintaining dominance. So, and I was maybe, I was a bit too two-dimensional thinking, like as someone who completely overthinks and over analyzes things, I was really
Relatable.
simplistically, I was being really simplistic on that first vote, and it really, yeah, I wasn't in my own what ifs, the normal way of thinking about things on that vote. So yeah, no, I didn't really have a consideration because I thought it was in the collective interest to just maintain numbers and then pick away at what was left of the world tribe post that.
Yeah. Well, look, your decisions define the season have made it help to make it, one of the best seasons of all time. You've been a major character in that it was complicated from the jump, but the season is so much richer for how complicated your journey was. So, thank you so much for calling in from Europe as well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your trip. I hope we get to speak more personally and maybe on the podcast as well if you ever want to talk more about it. But thank you so much, Sarah. It means a lot for you to call into the podcast today.
Oh, thanks, Shannon. It's so fun. Yeah, it's been awesome watching. Like the season's epic. So at the end of the day, as a fan, like any true fan of Survivor would just want it to be a great show. So the fact that it is, and the fact that the community is losing their minds over it, I get so much glee and joy from that. So yeah, great to talk to you too, as always.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Have a good time in Europe. Bye.
Right. See you, Shannon. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.